This video right here is to show you how to inbound the ball after the other team scores a basket. So again, we are inbounding from below the baseline. The baseline is shown as that red line on the bottom. Obviously, in the court, it's not painted red, but you have an arrow pointing to the area where you should be behind the baseline. So you have player 3 inbounding either to player 1 or player 2, and you can see where players 5 and 4 should be set up before the half court line. That way, if players 1 and 2 are covered, then player 3 has an easy pass in order to be able to pass it either to 5 or to player 4. So if player 1 is defended by another player shown as a red X, and player 2 is defended by another player from the other team shown as a red X, we must always push off to create separation. We've worked on this in practice, so you must push off. In other words, you push to where the other player is, to where the defender is. You push him off, and in this case, you're going to push him off to the middle, and the inbounder is going to pass the ball to the outside, to away from the defender, and player 1 must jump that way and go get the ball as the ball is being passed. Same thing if we pass the ball to player number 2. Player number 2 will push in, and the inbounder, which is player number 3, will inbound away from the defender, and player 2 will go get the ball and start bringing up the ball up the court. So let's say we inbounded to player 1. Player 3 will run behind to the outside on the left side of player 1. Player 2 will be on the right side, pretty much even or behind. If there's nobody covering you, then you can be up a little bit, but you don't want to get too far ahead player 1, because you are the outlet pass in case player 1 gets in trouble. So players 4 and 5 are slowly moving up the court, so that way if player 1 can pass it to you, you're not so far away that player 1 has to make an extremely long pass, which is easy to intercept. So you have to stay relatively close to whoever's handling the ball. That way they are able to pass you the ball if you're open. So before we pass half court, everybody should be pretty much set up in this area. Players 4 and 5 are going to be below right here, the 3-point line of the other side where we're trying to shoot. Player 2 and 3 are waiting for player 1 to cross half court. As you can see, the ball already crossed half court. So if the ball passes a half court line, we cannot pass the ball back. So in other words, if player 1 right here would pass it to player 3, player 1 has to pass it ahead of the half court line, or else it's a back court violation. So once player 1 passes the half court line, player 3 and player 2 should also be above the half court line. So player 1 will have a couple of options. Player 1 will have the option to just drive into the basket and get a close-up shot, or try to hit a layup, or you're going to pass to player number 3, and as you can see by this arrow, you're going to pass away from the defender and a little bit behind player 3. You also have the option to pass to player 4, which is right in front, or you have another option to pass to player 2. So you're always going to have 3 options: to the left, to the front, or to the right. So if we are going to pass it to player 3, which is on our left side, you have to pass away from the defender. So you can see the defender would be between that player and the basket. So player 1 must pass it away from the defender. You don't want to pass it in front of player 3, which is closer to the defender, because the defender is going to steal it and go and hit a layup with nobody being able to play defense on them. So again, the pass is away from the defender or behind player 3. So if player 3 gets the ball, then player 3 has options to pass the ball. Player 3 can either take off and shoot a basket closer, or pass it to player 5. If player 5 is not open and is covered, then you have the option of passing it to player 4, who was sliding over to this side where the ball is. And if player 4 is not open, then you can always pass it back to player 1. So you're always going to have three options: players 5, 4, or 1 again. If the ball is passed back to player 1, then player 1 will have options again. You're going to start moving over to the right, and you're going to have the option to pass it to player number 2. Again, you're going to pass it away from their defender. You can either pass it to player 5, who was all the way on the left, and it was able to move now to the top part of the free throw line. And if not, you can always pass it back to player 3. So again, this is our setup. And what you want to do is you want to keep the ball moving until you have a good shot. Whoever is open and has a good shot, a good close-up shot, not necessarily a three-point shot, because there's not many of us that can shoot a three-point. And if we're able to shoot it, most of the time we're not going to be able to make it. So we have to keep the ball moving until one of the defenders kind of gets caught up, and then you have an easier access to drive in and shoot a close-up shot. So again, always pass the ball away from the defender. If you pass it in front of player number 3, then the defender shown by the red X is going to have an easy access to steal the ball. So if player number 3 needs to push off and create separation, you push off the defender. The ball is then thrown behind